"You don't belong here. Call security." The words sliced through the marble-clad lobby of Axiom Bank's main branch, a glass and steel landmark in the heart of the city's financial district. The man standing at the counter didn't react. White dress shirt, no tie, pressed slacks, close-cropped hair, dark skin. On the counter lay a withdrawal slip, $85,000. Behind the glass, Assistant Branch Manager Elaine Hargrove frowned as though dealing with a problem, not a customer. "The standard banking services are downstairs," she said, not asking for his name or checking the account. "This area is for corporate clients only." Security approached, not in a rush, but with enough intent to draw attention from others in the lobby. The black man calmly reached into his jacket and pulled out a metal identification card. Not a bank card, not a driver's license. A personal ID badge, Elijah Grant. Chairman, Verity Holdings, strategic shareholder, Axiom Bank Group. Elaine froze. Not because of the title, but because this was a name she'd only seen on shareholder boards and strategic planning briefings, never expected to meet in person, and certainly not expecting that skin color. Elijah didn't say another word. He looked her in the eyes, then turned to security. "I no longer need to withdraw funds, but I will need a meeting with the entire executive board." Without waiting for a response, he folded the withdrawal slip, tucked it into his pocket, and walked out of the bank. No anger, no threats, only a silence suffocated the room in its wake. The room was completely silent. No more footsteps, no more calls for security, no more condescending looks. Only one quiet truth remained. The man they had tried to push out the door was once the one who mopped these floors. And now he holds the keys to the entire system. You're still reading this. Maybe because you too know that feeling of being judged wrongly just because you didn't match someone else's expectations. Maybe you're thinking of someone, a loved one, a friend, or maybe yourself, who's ever been pushed aside. If so, leave a simple comment. "I see it now." It doesn't have to be long, just enough for someone scrolling by to know they're not alone. If you believe dignity isn't found in suits or business cards, but in the way we stand firm in the face of bias without breaking, leave a like. And if you want more stories that challenge how we live and how we judge others, hit subscribe. Because some things can only be truly seen when we're willing to stop and look a little closer. That evening, a message was issued from the 42nd floor of Axiom Bank's headquarters. Immediate suspension of all management at the central branch. Initiate a full audit of service culture across the network. Start with Grand Avenue. E.G. Before he ever walked into a shareholder meeting, before the name Elijah Grant appeared on Axiom Bank's equity roster, he was invisible. Not metaphorically, literally, he was once a night janitor in this very banking system. He was 20 years old at the time. His father had passed, his mother was sick. He attended college by day and cleaned floors by night. No one greeted him in the hallway. No one looked him in the eye when he asked permission to clean a room. And he didn't blame them. Because the invisible don't have the right to ask to be seen. But after everyone left, after the office lights dimmed, Elijah came alive. He picked up discarded reports from fax machines, secretly photocopied internal training manuals, memorized every unfamiliar financial term he came across. He studied under the emergency light in the restroom. He practiced speaking like a financial associate, even though the only person he spoke to all day was Hank, the old security guard. 10 years later, Elijah no longer cleaned floors. He became a credit analyst, then a risk assessor, then an investment strategist. Then he left the system and built Verity Holdings, an independent investment firm with a core philosophy. We don't buy risk. We buy what others haven't dared to look at. Another 10 years on, Verity Holdings acquired 42% of Axiom Bank's equity. No one invited Elijah to the table. He walked in himself, with power, but without forgetting where he came from. When he stood in the Grand Avenue lobby that day, he wasn't there to evaluate procedures. He was there to ask one thing. After all these years, did this system still treat people who don't look the part like they don't belong? Sadly, the answer was still yes. 3 days after the Grand Avenue incident, the Internal Audit Division on the 11th floor of Axiom's headquarters lit up earlier than usual. On the desk lay a directive stamped by Elijah Grant. Suspend Elaine Hargrove and the entire executive team at the Grand Branch. Initiate a system-wide cultural audit of service behavior. Start with Grand Avenue. E.g., this time, auditors weren't checking paperwork or account ledgers. They were observing how customers were greeted. Who got offered tea? Who was told to wait? Who was asked for ID 3 times? And who was addressed by name with a smile? What they found was undeniable. Clients with foreign-sounding last names waited longer. Women of color applying for business loans were asked for more documentation than the standard requirements. Customers dressed modestly were often redirected to the general service floor, despite holding VIP accounts. At another branch, a retired longtime employee quietly sent an email. I once saw a customer ask to prove their workplace just because they wore flip-flops into the bank. At the time, I thought, better safe than sorry. But now I realize caution can't be an excuse for prejudice. Axiom's internal structures began to tremble. No one was immediately prosecuted, but no one could say, I didn't know anymore. The system was being forced to look itself in the mirror, not through polished reports, not through 5-star service reviews, but through the hard truth Elijah had dropped in unannounced, like a mirror held up in silence. Temporary office, 17th floor, where the Culture Investigation Task Force was stationed. Elaine Hargrove sat still, hands clasped tightly together. No more designer blazers. No more confident poise she once wore like armor. The door opened. Elijah Grant walked in, bringing with him a silence so heavy it pressed on the air. He didn't sit. He simply placed a file folder on the table in front of her. This is the complete recording of what you said that day, including both video and audio. Elaine didn't dare look up. Elijah pulled out 2 sheets of paper. 1, a resignation letter, undated. 2, an invitation to speak at the upcoming all-staff meeting at the Grand Avenue branch. Under one condition, she must tell the story truthfully. No deflections, no self-defense. He slid both papers across the table. You're being given a choice, but only once. I don't need your apology. I need you to understand what you did and be willing to let others see it too. Elaine finally looked up, eyes red, but not seeking pity. And if I choose silence, Elijah answered, voice steady, then tomorrow your name will disappear from every staff directory. But what's worse than losing your job is losing the chance to learn why it happened. She picked up the invitation. Didn't sign, didn't decline, only nodded slowly. I used to think I understood customers. Turns out, I only knew how to choose the ones who looked like me. Elijah folded the folder shut. No parting words. He left the room, no need to close the door, because the real door was the one Elaine had to choose to shut or open. Amira Torres stepped into the 12th floor boardroom at Axiom's headquarters. Spacious lobby, glass tables, leather chairs. Everyone in the room was either a training manager, regional director, or HR advisor, people used to making decisions, not hearing feedback. They all knew she had been personally appointed by Elijah Grant as the new advisor for service culture. No one objected openly, but their eyes, posture, and silence all said the same thing. A young Latina woman who used to wait tables speaks plainly. What could she possibly know about corporate culture? Amira pulled up the first slide. No graphs, no charts, just one sentence. You call it a standard. I call it selective. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Instead, she read directly from the internal training manual. Greet VIP clients with a polished smile, pleasant voice, and professional appearance tailored to corporate clientele. She looked up. What exactly is a pleasant voice? Which accent qualifies? Which one is polished enough? And who decided what looks professional? No one answered, not because they didn't know, but because, for the first time, they were being questioned by a voice they once deemed not professional enough. A man at the end of the table muttered, "We're not discriminatory. We just go by what customers respond to." Amira nodded gently, but her reply was sharp as a scalpel. And it's exactly because you don't see it that the system has lasted this long. She ended the meeting with 3 clear proposals. 1. Eliminate all vague and subjective descriptors in training content. Words like elegant, properly friendly, and instantly likable had to go. 2. Introduce linguistic bias training. No more assuming a soft-spoken tone is better or regional accents are unprofessional. 3. Evaluate real behavior using video audits, instead of relying solely on self-reported surveys and peer scores. Elijah didn't attend the meeting, but that night he received the full report. At the bottom, he scribbled one line. This is the first time the system had no justification to offer, which means it's finally beginning to understand there's nothing left to excuse. An anonymous email landed in Axiom's internal culture feedback inbox. No subject line, no signature. Just one quiet paragraph. After I reported my team leads for favoring certain customers, my shifts were changed constantly, and I was given extra tasks and left out of regular meetings. No one said it directly, but everyone understood. I had become the problem. If this is the price for telling the truth, I understand why most people choose silence. Amira read the email in silence. She didn't need to know the sender's name, because she had once been that person, 3 years earlier. The only difference was, back then, there was no one she could have sent the email to. She picked up the phone and called Elijah. "We need to do something," she said. "Not another training, not another survey. We need a real system that protects people who speak up. Not symbolic protection, real protection. Strong enough that if anyone retaliates, they know they're not just going after one person. They're taking on the whole system." 3 weeks later, SPEAK was launched, a safeguard program for employees against kickback, a program to protect employees from retaliation after raising concerns. SPEAK operated on 3 core principles. 1. Post-reporting surveillance. Any unusual changes in work schedules, performance reviews, or email behavior would be scanned by AI to detect covert retaliation. 2. Psychological escort. Anyone who submitted sensitive feedback had the right to invite a SPEAK representative to attend any key meeting involving direct supervisors. 3. Culture safety scorecards by branch. Every quarter, internal rankings would highlight branches with the most and least psychologically safe environments for employee feedback. Elijah sent a clear message across the entire system. We cannot demand honesty from our people if we aren't willing to stand between them and the consequences they face for telling the truth. A few days later, the anonymous sender wrote again. Just one line. Thank you for reminding me I'm not crazy. Thank you for letting me know. This time, I don't have to fight alone. City Convention Center. Nearly 300 senior staff, branch and regional managers from across the country gathered for Axiom's annual leadership conference. For the first time in the company's history, the keynote speaker wasn't the CEO or the chair. It was Elijah Grant, strategic shareholder, and the man the entire system owed a moment of reckoning. Elijah stepped onto the stage. No background music, no flashy slides, just a microphone and a soft spotlight from above, enough to make silence visible with every step he took. He began, not with a welcome, not with a speech. I was once asked to leave this very bank. Not because I caused a disturbance, not because I lacked documents, but simply because I didn't fit someone's idea of what a VIP customer looks like. That day, I didn't say who I was, because I wanted to know, does value truly lie in a business card or in the human being behind it? The room was silent. Not a breath out of place. Elijah recounted the incident. No dramatization, no exaggeration. I'm not here to demand an apology. I'm not here to reclaim my dignity. I'm here to record a truth that happened, so that no one in this room is ever allowed to forget it. He looked across the room. You are the ones in power. But true power isn't about how many people you manage. It's about what you choose to do when you see something wrong, even when no one else is watching. He ended with a sentence shorter than the introduction. I don't need your promises, I just need you to remember. Because when memory fades, discrimination returns. Only next time it will smile and say, that never happened, did it? Elijah stepped down from the stage. No one clapped, not out of disapproval, but because everyone was folding their hearts like closing a book that weighed too much.